All right, inshallah, we can start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to Receiving Nur weekly Quranic wisdom study. We're continuing to talk about windows onto our Rabb, our God, our Creator. In light of the Quran, we're continuing to reflect on the creation, the world within us and out without around us, to get to know our Creator and connect with Him. We are going to, inshallah, do 12th window today, and Dr. Yamina is going to lead our study as usual, and you're welcome to join in with your comments and questions. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina.
Thank you, Isra. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله العظيم الكريم الرحيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه سبحانه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So as usual, we'll start with reading this window. It's the 12th window together, and I'll ask you to pay attention between the text and the reflection of the author and the few ayats that are mentioned at the beginning from Surah Al-A'la. It's the 3 first ayat verses of Surah Al-A'la. So pay attention between the connection between the text and the reflections and the ayat. And so right after the reading, instead of me sharing what my reflections are about it, how about this time we start with group reflections where you share among yourselves what you thought or what came to your mind, to your heart, and then you share with us, inshallah. So we learn how to listen to, because when we're listening to a text, or whether it's from the Quran or a reflection of someone on the Quran, we are also listening. We learn also to listen to ourselves, because we are first listening, and then we have to listen to our response to that text. And that needs some mindfulness, some presence, being present with what we are hearing and what's going on within ourselves as a response to what we are hearing. And that's what I would like you to share. What do you find within yourselves? And as usual, I emphasize honesty. Instead of saying, oh yes, I heard Allah, oh yeah, the Allah, we're Muslims, Allah, yes, of course. As if we know. No, start each time from totally as a new listener. What? Because if I'm only hearing what I already knew, then I'm not hearing anything new. And wouldn't that make the revelation obsolete? Or does it mean that we cannot know God in new ways every day? Isn't it like ما خلقت هذا باطلا? You have not created anything in vain. Does it mean that each day is the same as yesterday? So there must be something new, and this something is not only new, it is crucial to our spiritual journey in this life, and it pertains to our station, in eternal life, in the hereafter, inshallah. So, Bismillah. Anyone, inshallah, please go ahead and share with us the 12th window. Bismillah. Anyone who would like to
read, right?
Yes, read, inshallah. We'll start by reading and listening.
I can read if someone would like to. Zahra?
Thank you. Anyone who is reading, thank you. Jazakumullah khair.
Go for it, Sarah.
No, you, Zahra, please.
Okay, Bismillah. Glory the name of your sustainer, the all-highest, who has created and given order and proportion, and who has determined the nature of all things and guided them towards their fulfillment. According to the meaning of this verse, all things, and especially living creatures, have been given a form and regular proportions in accordance with wisdom, as though they have emerged from a purposeful mold. Contained in those measured proportions are intricate extremities for various benefits and uses. And the form of their clothes and their proportions, which they change throughout the periods of their lives, are each immaterial and well-ordered and measured, and are composed of the appointed events of their lives again in a fashion suitable to wisdom and benefits. This shows clearly that those innumerable creatures whose forms and proportions have been planned in the sphere of determining of an all-powerful one of glory, an all-wise one of perfection, and who have been given forms fashioned in the workshop of divine power, point to that being's necessary existence and testify to his unity and perfect power with endless tongues. Look at your own body and its members and the fruits of its intricate and complex places. See the perfect power within the perfect wisdom.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Zahra. So now we heard this, and Isra, could you have or someone, can you have people in groups? And what we're going to do is share our thoughts and feelings and our reflections on this text, especially in relation to the ayat mentioned at the beginning, inshallah. Does it make sense? Bismillah. And how many minutes do you think we need? 4, 5? I need to hear something.
I just stepped in, sister, but I'm wondering about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Then, Bismillah. 5 minutes it is.
Bismillah.
I'll put my timer on, inshallah.
Take us a little bit time to break people into groups. Just bear with us. Nartila, can you check your message? Okay, the rooms are now available for you to join.
Are we ready, inshallah?
Yes, they are going into the groups now.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Syra, you should see an alert to tell you to go to the room. Everyone else went.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, Dr. Yamina, everybody.
Inshallah, so maybe you can, each group can share what has been discussed in your own group.
I guess I'll start. Mashallah.
Bismillah.
Bismillah. So first we talked about this word mold, a purposeful mold, and how striking that word was. And I was saying how it reminds me of like a mold in the kitchen, like to make a cookie. It's so clear that there is someone using this mold to come with this shape. And it was just a word that really was a strong visual word that indicates, like strongly indicates the need for the way you would make a cookie. You would need a chef. And then the word, we were just looking at words that really stood out, and the perfect proportions and the mold. Naima was sharing how it reminds her, like in the kitchen, for example, the measure has to be exact. There has to be an exact measure. So she was saying, like, look at our hand and the exactness of that and the perfection of that mold. And then we expanded, like, imagine then our whole body and every creature that we see and its clothing on the outside, and it's just the perfection of its interior design, and how truly that points to divine power and wisdom. We were saying, Naima was saying how, like, the workshop, if you think of a workshop, and this is a word that Nursi uses often, that's very beautiful. You think of so many hands and so many tools and so much, like, power, manpower needed. Yet when you look at the creation that's before us, including ourselves, wow, like, it's just truly, it's a miracle. It's just divine power and wisdom, and a workshop that's just beyond imagination.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Please go ahead. Don't wait for invitation. Anyone else?
Bismillah. Our group had Sarah, Zara, and I'm sorry, one other person that I missed. I'm not sure, but Sarah had mentioned, well, I had mentioned that this window reminded me of Allah's attribute, El Musawwir, the shaper of all forms and appearances. And I said sometimes I look in the mirror and I just say, "Who are you?" and nobody else says that, but that's okay. And Sarah said, she hasn't looked at herself in the mirror recently. She's just tired sometimes, and she knows that she's a perfect creation, one of Allah's perfect creations, and I think our group concluded that, yeah, why don't we just look at ourselves in the mirror, look at ourselves eye to eye in the mirror like we look at others, but sometimes we don't even give ourselves a good deep eye contact or a loving look. And why don't we just do that, and perhaps we would see Allah's perfection. Did anybody else want to add something from the group?
Thank you. Maybe another group. Inshallah. Thank you.
Ashbeza, would you like to speak on our behalf?
I would love to hear your voice if you don't mind sharing. And if not, I can share as well.
Yeah, please go ahead. You are more, what to say? Inshallah, you'll express it better.
Inshallah. So what our group talked about, and they can fill me in if I skip out on anything, was at least what resonated with me was the reflection that is required within the creation, contemplating on the proportions and the order and the intricacies, the measurements within the universe, and coming to this conclusion of the one who measures, or the orderer, the proportion giver. And in addition to that, how everything being given a particular order or measurement necessarily looks to a conscious will or a conscious design, that nothing is there as a result of random happenings or of accident. Every little thing is accounted for, no matter how tiny or irrelevant seeming it might seem. Everything is there purposefully with a purposeful design and intention and will behind it.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I wanted to jump in and share that today I went to the optometrist. I think that's what it's called. So
Optometrist,
yeah, she wanted to check my retina, and she made me, they make you look this way and that way. She shines the light, and she said she wanted to make sure the retina is something. And I was like, what? I didn't even know that. She said there could be sometimes a fluid that covers it, and we don't want the retina to, disconnect from this part of the eye, so we want to make sure and honor. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know like that there is that part of the back of my eye that needed a particular form, shape, and it had to stay in that shape. And she just wanted to make sure that given that I'm getting older, that or something else that she noticed. That's why. And yeah, so I was just sitting there amazed that, whoa, like I don't even think about, I may think about my eyes, but I don't think about the back of my eye and the particular location. She said it's too thin. The back of your retina is a bit too thin. And so I want to make sure things are okay. Oh, look, there's a membrane there. One of the things that I find interesting in this window is this reference to extremities. And I think in Turkish, eğri büğrü hudutlar, it has a sense of winding extremity. So it looks like, let me put it this way, like what is amazing is that these proportions and orders are not like as if it was done with a ruler, like the way your retina is, your eye or eyelashes or your fingers, they're not in the same kind of one cookie cutter shape. They're not all on the same height, but then it's great that your fingers are not the same height, or it's great that your eyes are enveloped in this way, not exactly round, but as it should be, or your heart is not a particular geometrical figure, exactly a cube or exactly a cylinder. No, it has that kind of interesting shape that is perfect for its function of pumping the blood throughout your life. And if you think about intestines, it's so well proportioned. At the same time, it isn't like as if it's drawn by rigid lines, that they have the shapes, the forms and shapes are so varied and perfectly varied, and meaning it serves a purpose. If it was a cube, your heart was a cube, like exactly nice neat cube, it wouldn't be able to function, or an exact round ball, it wouldn't be able to function in the way it's meant to. So these, what he calls as extremities, these apparently like winding or non-straight lines within our body, outside in all the creatures, he says, look at that, their extremities, or their these literally boundaries, winding boundaries, that they have various benefits and uses. This is very amazing. And it's also touching because it brings it at the end to us. Look at yourself, look at your own body, and that is actually, I was very, whenever I go to doctor, I feel this sense of wow, you know, they check things and alhamdulillah, oftentimes things are okay, and I'm like, I didn't even know that there was such a thing to be checked for, and yet things are happening proportionally in measure. And I'm someone who wears glasses, and my eyesight actually, my glass has kind of regressed a little bit in the last 2 years. So I'm not saying perfect in the sense that, oh, I have no problems, no, there's no, you know, sicknesses in the world. There are sicknesses in the world. There are health issues all over the world. But they, as we discussed another time, they also have a purpose. And one of the purpose is to make us notice how so many things in our bodies are going so seamlessly well and quietly. And in this window, it wants us to focus on this musawwar, this, as Jalila said, this giving form, giving proportion. And this itself is a window opening up to wisdom and power. These are two major things it was mentioned here, wisdom and power of the one. I didn't have a group, so I spoke for everyone in my group.
Anyone else, inshallah?
Well, I can say a few words, but I haven't been speaking in English for so many times, so I don't know whether I can express myself well. I'm sorry for expression faults first. Well, when I read this window, first, what came to my heart is that don't be afraid of loneliness, because when I feel myself like a, for example, a piece of diamond, but dirty or put anywhere, maybe sometimes someone just steps on it. It is just lost somewhere. When I feel like that, well, I sometimes feel like that in the continuing life. But when I read this and when I look at myself, well, it makes like a feeling that well, I'm not a lost diamond, but I'm just maybe a diamond just cleanly, specially put in a special place, and maybe covered with a glass and put on a shelf and maybe lightened. And so on and so forth. So I'm, well, someone is taking care of me. And when I read this window and look to myself and my life from such a window, well, I think I'm not alone. I'm not alone. In fact, I'm not alone. Yes, I'm in a crowded family, in a crowded public, but there is a loneliness in my heart when I stay with myself. I feel a loneliness, and this window is saying to me that well, you are not alone. You are being taken care of someone. Yeah, you are being taken care of someone, and so you can just get connected with him. You are not alone. So this makes me just not be afraid of being alone, feeling alone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So if we look at the text again, it starts from according to the meaning of this verse, of this ayat. And the ayat are again at the beginning من سورة الأعلى سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى. Glorify the name of your Rabb, your sustainer, the all highest, who has created and given order and proportion, and who has determined the nature of all things and guided them towards their fulfillment. So we're told here, according to the meaning of this text, this Quranic ayat, all things, and especially living creatures, have been given a form, and it's not just a haphazard form, and regular proportions in accordance with wisdom, as though they have emerged from a purposeful mold. So it's not any mold just to give, like the cookies, you know, different pretty shapes. No, purposeful mold, purposeful proportions, regular proportions that fulfill purposes. And they are contained in those measured, those purposeful proportions. They are measured, they are purposeful and measured in accordance to everything around us, around that creature, as though they have emerged from, they have contained in those measured proportions are intricate extremities for various benefits and uses. Now we understand what the purposes are. The purpose, the measurement, the order, we see it first as benefits in its uses. The uses are all to fulfill benefits for that creature. And the form of and not only for that creature, actually, that creature benefits itself and others in many ways, except I'm not sure about human beings. And the form of their clothes, I mean, all kinds of beings, they are clothed, and their proportions, which they change throughout the periods of their lives. So this mold is not one mold like a cookie. These proportions, the order, everything keep changing, because usually, especially living beings, you can see how they're growing and changing. And even other beings, inanimate beings, are changing, but we don't always see it so directly. Change throughout the periods. So the clothes and proportions, which they change throughout the periods of their lives, are each immaterial and well ordered and measured, and are composed of the appointed events of their lives. So it's not only the being there, static, sitting there, but also all what is happening to them in their life, throughout their life, is part of what's going on. It's part of the molding and the shaping and the measuring and the wisdom and the benefits and the tarbiyah. This shows clearly that those innumerable creatures, so this is also important because this workshop, as was mentioned before, it's not like just few creatures. No, it's just so endless. The abundance is also something that brings awe within us at what's going on. And often it's also what take us to forgetting and not seeing the endless power and wisdom when we are in a state of ghafla. So this shows clearly that those innumerable creatures whose forms and proportions have been planned. So clearly, all this, there is an abundance of creatures, all of them very different. And in each species, they are all, each one is unique, not only their looks, but their life, what happens to them in their lives and everything, each is very unique. And yet, so it's clearly they are being planned in the spheres of qadr, of determining, of an all-powerful one of glory and all-wise one of perfection. So it's done with, there is power, a power that can encompass everything and has the power to do everything, to create everything, of be and it is, and an all-wise, there is wisdom, and wisdom with perfection. The more we look, as we are told in another ayah, look and look again. هل ترى من فطور? Do you see any fault? And who have been given forms fashioned in the workshop of divine power. Point to that being's necessary existence. There must be someone with endless power and endless wisdom, perfect wisdom, who is producing all these things in this so well measured proportions and order. And they testify to his unity and perfect power with endless tongues, with the tongues, the tongues of the different beings, and each being with the tongues of its tongue within tongue of each organ, each all kinds of things happening within that being. So the tongues are really, they're like tongues within tongues within tongues. And then we are told, look at, so it may be like too overwhelming to look at all these things. And that's why, remember from the beginning, always ahadiyya within wahidiyya, in order to be able to conclude that all these things are coming from one, we need to first focus on one. And of course, we can focus on one creature outside there, or on our own. It says, look at your own body. I mean, within, there is the body in general, and within the body, if we look at each thing, like the eye, as Isra mentioned, and how everything, so the eye has to be connected to the whole body, to the brain and the whole body. The whole body has to be alive for an eye, a seeing eye, to see. And so sight is given, but that eye, even if we go only through school science book, not very sophisticated, when you look at how many things there are in the eye and how they're all connected and how there are so many specialized nerves and cells and all interconnected in order for us to be able to have a healthy eye and see, it is incredible. The more we learn, the more we reflect, the more we pay attention, the more we are at awe. It is amazing. So when we are told glorify, we will have it, like, unless we are resisting, if we have if we surrender to the reality of what's going on, then we will find endless awe and appreciation and praise within us, and we will glorify God with and praise him. And if we look at the ear and all what's going on, like the middle ear, the inner ear, this and that, and how they're all connected, and the brain and this, subhanallah, and the noises that will have to come to the ear. And we're not even talking about the consciousness and how we make sense of what we hear. That's a totally different thing. And the ear, and even like how things are proportioned and where they are put. Like we have legs, the baby has legs, but can't walk. And as it grows, because in the beginning the legs are weak and small, and then the body is, the trunk is like bigger, and then it's the proportion change, the mold change, so as to make it more proportionate to facilitate our walking. Although walking is a miracle on its own, just having that is not enough, but still it is some requirements, physical requirements, and they are all there to fulfill this wisdom, this beneficial, this is wisdom and benefits. And our hands and the place they are, like our legs are down, and it's very useful for walking, and our arms and hands are situated in ways that are make all the things that we use them for, they are just at the appropriate, the best place. And you look at the mouth, for instance, and the tongue, and then the nose. We taste not only with our tongue, but also with our nose, with the smell. SubhanAllah, and they put just next to each other. So there is, the more we pause and reflect, as was told in one group, the more we pause and pay attention and reflect, the more we see layers and layers of wisdom and benefits, and the order and the proportion and that all indicate this will and purpose. There are so many of them, subhanallah, like it's so many of them that however much we glorify God and praise him and appreciate his creation, it feels like it's not enough, because it's so overwhelming, like the amount of, or the amount of, how do you say, of blessings, not only for ourselves, but everything around us. And this is not only for, like, this can be, he said here at the beginning, especially living creatures. You can take plants, insects, animals, human beings. You can go even to, one-cell creatures. Each creature is a whole world on its own, but even inanimate beings. Think of water, think of air, think of soil. Like, it's amazing what is happening with each of them. Yes?
There is a question in the chat asking about this word immaterial forms.
What is that?
What does that mean, immaterial? In the second long sentence, third sentence, yeah. And the form of their clothes and their proportions, which change throughout the periods of their lives, are each immaterial and well-ordered and measured. In
Manevi, probably.
Yeah, in the Turkish it says
Manevi.
manevi ve muntazam birer suret, birer miktar. Manevi ve muntazam birer suret.
So the form of their clothes and their proportions, which they change throughout the periods, are each immaterial and well-ordered and measured.
Manevi ve muntazam birer suret, birer miktar. Suret ve miktar, manevi ve muntazam. I think it if I may, the immaterial here is referring to non-physical, because if we think about a machine, if you're making a machine or a car, for each part you have to have a mold, or you have to have a plan, a design, on a paper or whatever, however they're producing things. But there are these measures that are on the paper, and then also the actual thing being produced in the factory.
The blueprint, at least.
Huh?
At least a blueprint.
Blueprint has to be there, or like if we think about 3D printing, whatever you're familiar with, basically in factories, the parts are made according to with these molds. Literally, things are put in steel molds or something, and then they're put together, and it becomes a car, it becomes a phone, it becomes furniture. So there are these physical forms and molds that are used, but when we look at living beings, we don't see those. We don't see any physical form. So when the heart is forming, as in the
Just appears as the heart.
yeah, it takes a shape. It takes a shape.
Sister, may I share something about that word?
Yes.
I just Googled it. This is Yamina here. And so one meaning of it is it's not important, but a second meaning they had for that word meant spiritual rather than physical. So that what that might mean to me is some the things that perhaps are not seen, that are not seen by the eye.
Yes, in a way, the original word, which is also an Arabic word, ma'nawi, looks to ma'na, means to meaning. And so it pertains to meaning rather than to matter. And of course, meaning is something that we don't see with the physical eye, but with insight, with understanding, with the heart, with the spirit, with anything else. And of course, here we see the Isra was saying, like we see the shape that it takes at the end, but there is no blueprint, no mold that is made and then it is made out of it. There is no mold that all of them share, for instance. Each creature is, each being is unique, and there is no mold because it keeps changing, especially we see the changes more clearly when a living creature is just born and keeps changing very quickly.
Yeah, and then any of us who studied some biology will remember that they never talk about the shapes and the forms. How they just talk about that this takes this shape, but there is no like they can't refer to anything that this is put in this cutter and then it comes out of this. We don't see a shape former inside the body physically. So they just kind of ignore the whole thing. Because how come that heart is taking there must be a mold, a kind of invisible mold, or like meaning that there is divine wisdom manifesting. That heart takes that shape, and there are like a million cells.
So the mold here is like more something for us to understand, like it's like a mold. That's why here it's like an immaterial mold, but actually there is no mold. It just be and it is.
Yeah.
So we understand through that there is proportion, order, measurement, that it's done purposely. That's what matters, that we understand that it is coming into being purposely. It is the result of will and purpose, and it is measured and ordered and proportioned.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Yamina. Thank you so much. If I may, two ayats come to mind. One is, this is Saira. One is regarding, I think in Surah Yasin, Allah Ta'ala says that whatever we, whoever, or either Surah Mulk or Surah Yasin, I think I forget, that whatever we created, we reverse in creation. Whoever we give long life to, we reverse in creation. That's, I think as humans, we can appreciate it, that when in old age, we are very old, it's almost like as if we have become a child dependent on another caregiver at later stage in life. And then for the plants, I guess Allah Ta'ala have said, again, I don't know the exact surah and ayah, but the meaning is that I've created abundant different variety of fruits and produce, but some plants are given more fruition and others not. And then always Allah Ta'ala emphasizes that it is based on what I will. My question to you is that willing of abundance and perfect, and also about the creation of and the process of pregnancy, that Allah Ta'ala says, I give children whom I will to and whom I don't will for. And then whichever form the baby takes, Allah is aware of it. So I guess that for many sisters who have given birth to children, and if children have special needs, it resonates that even in that form, there is, I guess, a divine wisdom and perfection for whatever that means for the destinies of those children and their parents who take care of them. My reflection or a question in my mind that comes for Said Nusri's interpretations through these windows is, I notice all the windows that you have covered, and especially this one, the emphasis is in appreciating the good in everything. And it almost feels like that going through the Risale is like appreciating only the good and receiving only the good. I don't think there is a lot of emphasis on when evil hits us or when lack or deprivation hits us. Am I right in reading it this way?
Actually, thank you for your question. When you were talking about children with special needs and that, I was thinking, yes. However, we need to first appreciate the divine will, the power, the wisdom, and appreciate their comprehensiveness and their depth and their intensity, so that we can go back changed and transformed, and we will then be ready to listen to whatever wisdom, special wisdom there is in special cases that look to us as unwanted or that we don't appreciate as much at first sight. So we need to first learn to appreciate who God is, and God, to him belong all the attributes of perfection. So unless I have a true, genuine connection with God as he describes himself in the Quran, and not as I think, what I think he is, and not based on claims, but based on true observation and experience here and now, then we can deal with the other cases. Now, is the Risala only that? No.
Right.
However, I choose particularly to focus on this parts first, because, and if you look at the first, this is from the words, and this is the last actually part of the words. The words is the first volume of this tafsir. Afterwards, he will talk about painful situations. He himself was someone who lived most of his life in exile and in prison and poisoned and harassed and persecuted all his life. And he shares some of his reflections on his situation, always saying in the beginning, I'm not sharing this to complain, I'm sharing this to share with you how an ayah from the Quran, for instance, Hasbunallah, has changed my life and illumined the darkness of this prison or something like that. You see what I mean? However, first, we need to be grounded in our iman, our certainty of who we are and who God is. Now, this doesn't start with saying each time Allah Ta'ala made this. We don't know. Each time Allah Ta'ala is going to reveal himself unto us through his creation. So I always start with, I see this. This indicates power. This indicates wisdom. And each time I have to go back this way. I can't say, but now I know God. No, but do you think God is only what you know? God is beyond our imagination. The beautiful names of God are endless. There is like, so what we see will always be limited with our situation. So each time we'll take it as a new opportunity to know God from a new perspective in new ways. That's why always we are going to start from the creation to the beautiful names to God.
Got it.
You see
Thank
what I
you.
mean?
Yep. Thank you so much.
So once we are grounded there, then we will, inshallah, have at least the grounding to, or let's say the spiritual strength and grounding and anchor to start listening and finding a beauty and wisdom in everything. Inna ma'al usri yusra fa inna ma'al usri yusra. As we are told in the ayah, there is ease within hardship. Indeed, there is ease within hardship. I can only find the ease within hardship when I am ready. You see what I mean? So after you see here, the ayah is glorify the name of your sustainer, the all highest, سبح اسم ربك الأعلى, who has created and given order and proportion, and who has determined the nature of all things and guided them towards their fulfillment. And we can see where the 12th window is actually a reflection on these ayat. After the first ayah says, glorify. It's a amr, it's a command. We are provided with guidance on how to glorify the name of our sustainer. What we read in the 12th window is a means of glorifying God. If we really truly start looking around at our body, at the creation out there, what we will be doing if we follow the steps in the ayah, then that activity is tasbih. So we are told sabbih, glorify, then we are taught how to make tasbih, how to glorify the name of our Rabb, our sustainer. And it also, as we go through the process, we then it's also an explanation of why we need to glorify. Not we need to glorify, oh, like I need to go to pray and I need to glorify. No, it's the need. I will feel the need. And if we feel the need, if I'm hungry and I find food and I eat, then there is a contentment, there is a satisfaction. So when I feel the need to glorify God and I look around and everything is inviting me to glorifying Him, everything is actually worth glorifying again and again, then as I glorify, the soul and the heart will be fed, will be the soul's hunger will be met, and that's how the heart will be satisfied or find rest and tranquility, as we were told in the 11th window. And so the more we observe the creation, the more we reflect, the more we pay attention to how everything is coming into being with order, with proportion, that are constantly changing, and they are most suitable to fulfill so many benefits and therefore indicate much wisdom. The more we can see with our eye and with our insight how the order and the wisdom and the planning and the tadbir, the administration, indicate the necessary existence of an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-wise being, and to his many, many attributes that are reflected in the creation. And we are told in the Quran that is God, that is Allah. So this testifying, this process is a process of testifying. It's a process of shahada. It's a live reflection here and now, and it fills the heart with awe, with reverence, with appreciation, with praise for this all high being, the creator and maker and sustainer of all beings and all life and all things and all existence. And that is tasbih, that is glorifying God. Remember in the 11th window, it was about how hearts find tranquility and inner peace and rest only in the remembrance of God.
Mm.
And that's because everything else is being created, meaning everything else, including ourselves, is being sustained in existence. And therefore, no single thing can fulfill the heart's needs and longings. And this part corresponds to the La ilaha. They cannot fulfill my needs. Nothing can fulfill my needs. And then we realize that only the eternal source of all goodness and perfection, to which everything is pointing to, the living one who sustained all life and all existence, the one on whom everything depends, our compassionate and generous sustainer, our host, is the only one who fulfills all our needs, who is actually fulfilling all our needs and longings here and now. And this corresponds to illallah. So true shahada, true testimony, is based on actually testifying, experiencing here and now all this reality, and it leads to a sound grounding and anchoring of the soul and the heart, and to true lasting. Then, only then, we will have that true lasting itmi'nan, that inner peace, that tranquility. So remembering God is important. Remember, we actually talked about it 2 weeks, the 11th window, because that's what everyone is seeking, and in this life, that inner peace, that tranquility. And so, and we are told you can only achieve it through remembering God. So remembering God is very important. And we want, yes?
No, yeah, I was going to say that yes, it is important, and in the times when I was saying in the reflection group that I was a part of too, that in times when we are in a state of deprivation or in like despair and fighting it off, in my case, I find that the dialogue that goes on with God, sometimes complaining, sometimes begging for help and mercy, sometimes asking for some sign, there is a range to that dialogue. There is that internal yearning to, okay, fine, I can't see you, but can I talk to you and hear you back? And I think Quran already is given to us to basically know what, I can't read Allah's mind for future, but I can't say he's trying to show me something, because he's above the human qualities and capabilities, way above. That much
He's not trying to show me something. He
commanding.
is, he is doing it. I am trying to understand.
I see.
I'm trying to see.
I see.
And also, maybe we have actually a session on dua, like asking help from God and speaking to God.
Like etiquettes of dua?
Not etiquettes of dua, the meaning and the true meaning of dua. And sometimes we think we are making dua, but we are in a place of disconnection. No wonder it doesn't work as we want, because dua, it means I'm asking from God, my sustainer. So I first have to make sure I'm anchored in that, in the awareness of the connection first, and what the awareness of that connection implies.
Right.
Once I'm connected, then you will see that dua takes a very different form that is much more like sweeter to the soul and to the heart, and more fulfilling as far as not only this world is concerned, but also, and more importantly, the hereafter is concerned, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Yamina.
So
Inshallah.
We stopped at remembering God is very important. And so we want to learn ways to perform dhikr Allah, because dhikr is very important. Dhikr is repeated again and again in the Quran to remember God. And often it is understood as repeating Allah, 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 or the names of God. And it is true, with one very important condition, that we know Allah and we love Him. Because if we truly know God, then the heart will love Him, because we have been created with a deep longing for the divine names. So when we know God and we say Allah, Allah, or we repeat any of the names of God, then it will be a remembrance. The more we mention God, the more we will remember something that we lived or we are living. Otherwise, it would be parroting.
And one thing
sorry?
One thing I wanted to share, I teach Islamic studies in a college level, and something that I frequently get from students in their reflections is, you need to trust God, but of course, even though there is no factual evidence for God, they keep saying these kind of sentences. Even though there is no physical, evidence for God, you need to kind of somehow trust. They're coming from various religious backgrounds and understandings. And it is a good kind of frank admission of where we often are. They are very eager to talk about, you have to trust God and so on, but actually sometimes they say there's no actual evidence for God. And so the Quran is really countering that and bringing us back to the real world, in which things have shapes and proportions and benefits and results and dynamic. And so these are things we know, but we don't pay attention, or we just sweep them under the rug of some names in biology, and then as if it's explained. So it's very important, I feel personally, to spend time on these things. And we don't have to use biology necessarily, or become an expert in technical details, but taking time to reflect on things in our own bodies, or on the trees and their branches, or whatever we are exposed to. It is an important Quranic clue, and I'm really grateful that Said Nursi keeps bringing this to the fore. And the other thing is about sicknesses. It's through the imbalance that we know about the balance. For instance, the heart, that particular shape, is a well-proportioned and purposeful mold, as if comes from a purposeful mold. How do I know? It's because, I have a friend whose baby was born with a tiny hole in one of the walls of the heart. And it was a major, sustained effort was given to that child to get attention. Is it going to close? Is it going to close? So those situations, as a parent, I can look at this and say, well, why did my baby was born like this? Not somebody else's baby was born, without a hole in their heart. But I find it helpful to remind myself that everybody has some sort of a difficulty or quote unquote lack, so that we can understand how well the heart is made, and how well, some people have breathing issues, some people have walking issues, temporarily or long term, or some people are healthy physically speaking, but they have emotional issues or challenges in their lives. We all have. I don't mean to say everybody is equally in the same difficulty. Some people seem to have more challenges than others, but in reality, I think everybody is going through things throughout their lives, and it's through them. I think what helps me personally, and I don't mean to, tell people how to feel, but I personally find it very helpful that what I'm going through is meant for a larger purpose. It's not meant there to be thrown, as if God is boiling me in water and saying, I want to see how much you can stand this temperature. It's not that kind of situation. It's more like whatever I'm going through has a larger wisdom and purpose, that it's through the difficulty and through the lack that the perfection comes.
And that's why I need to first learn to read the signs of ease and beauty, so that it's like you learn first to read like easy text, and then you can read the harder ones.
Yeah, and even when we're going through a particular challenge, and sometimes challenges are really intense than somebody else, at least apparently, but we have other things going on, like that, like I have problems with my eyes, but my blood is flowing okay, and I'm breathing okay. My husband has breathing issues, but he's walking well, he's seeing well. My mom can't hear or walk as well anymore, but she's able to speak, she's able to see. So like, it isn't that majority of the things in our body go wrong. Majority of them actually go according to a balance and proportion. I don't mean to say sickness has its own challenges, but it is also, it's not, I wanted to emphasize that it's meaningful, that it has a larger purpose. And that's why there's a lot of blessings, they say, in going through difficulty, because it's not just we are witnessing for ourselves the perfection through the contrast, but also we're becoming messengers for other people. And there's a lot of barakah and reward in becoming a witness for other people, and we become mirrors to each other. Through my struggles, somebody else can make witness to how things are arranged. Somebody else's challenge, I get to witness the perfection in creation. So in that, there's a lot of blessings when we become a messenger through our sicknesses. We don't have to talk about it, but the fact that we're going through it. Anyhow, maybe it's a whole different discussion. Maybe we can.
No, thank you so much, Isra. I really appreciate the way you put it, and I think the similar messages that I personally hear from Dr. Yamina and everybody, all the sisters who reflect that it is true. I mean, I'm having the struggle, not that all the sessions are about me, but yes, when I look at my piece and I reflect and reorient myself towards what I learned from this and all these sessions, is try to hold on to any little good things. Don't allow bitterness to come in. I just shared with Maha too that sometimes it's just so overwhelming that I say, okay, God help me, just carry me through this, because I want to close my eyes and walk through whatever pain or longing or suffering or sense of fear I feel from cancer or from the loss of my husband. And the most important thing that I'm realizing in terms of blessings is, even though I'm still bitter or irritable, maybe because of my ill health or maybe because of my cumulative losses. I just lost my 2 parakeets yesterday. I saw them take their last breath. Suddenly they just passed away. And I had them and I brought them over to my parents' home from our home as a memory of my cats and my husband's and the home's memory also. So the cumulative trauma and losses sometimes can make us totally ignore that, like you said, that I'm still able to breathe. Even though with chemo now I'm having a heavy breath after I speak a little longer, or if I walk a little brisker. I can't drive by myself because I have nausea or diarrhea, but I say, thank God I didn't get an ostomy bag. Those are, yeah. And what you said about God not being a, God forbid, just wanting to see me burn in my own stew kind of thing. That's the power struggle with my own mind's bad or wrong interpretation. The estimation of God's mercifulness should not be misunderstood, and God forbid we should not misattribute cruelty to God. Like Dr. Yamina said, this is beyond us.
Sister Saira, you should listen to a talk which there's a Pakistani girl who was doing MBBS. Her name is Anam Najam. I think I don't know if you have heard about her, But
Okay.
she was traveling. She was in Karachi, I think, or some place in Pakistan, and she was traveling, and they were dacoits who controlled them, and she was shot on her spine in neck region,
Oh, wow.
C7 or somewhere, and so she was paralyzed below neck. And she was saying that initially the injury caused so much of pain, like she had to sleep with her hands dipped in water because there was so much of burning. And if you listen to her interview, she was saying, I in my school time, I was asked to write an essay on my friend, and I was thinking who is my closest friend, and she wrote a letter to Allah, my closest friend. That was her conversation, and she was saying before this happened, just few days before, she was thinking, does Allah love me? I've heard that whoever Allah loves, he makes them face some trials, and so she was saying that thought came and went away, but this thing which happened to me, it has brought me so much closer to Allah. And the person was asking, don't you complain, like why did you do this to me?
Yeah.
She said, I was 21 years old when I got this, and at least for next 21 years I don't have a right to complain anything, because I didn't thank him enough for those 21 years. So you should listen to that interview. It's so motivating. And then she ends with her own handwritten poem, and that's about this. So inshallah, it's very motivating.
I will
and
listen to it. Thank
Inshallah.
you,
Her name
Zara.
is Anam Najam.
I've noted it down. Thank you,
Yes.
Zara. I will definitely hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is
Thanks,
also,
Yamina.
if you want to read, Imam Nursi has a treatise called the Sick. It's a treatise for people who are ill.
Okay.
The 25th Flash.
The 25th Flash. Okay.
The link is here on the chat box.
Thank you so much, Isra. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
So back to remembrance of God. We want to learn the ways to perform dhikrullah. And we said we need to know God and love him. And we start knowing God with his beautiful names, his beautiful qualities, when we start knowing ourselves. And that happens when we consciously choose, when we consciously decide to let go of our arrogance that is based on false claims about who we claim to be. I am this, I am that, everything that brings us some kind of pride, some things that makes us feel good, and we want to show off, or we want people to see us that way. We need to question it. Is it true? Is this truly mine, or is it a gift? So the journey to knowing ourselves as recipient of divine creativity, I'm saying creativity because those blessings, those things, those qualities are being given to us here and now. And to know him, and to therefore, as we know ourselves that way, then we start knowing him as our all-knowing, all-powerful, all-wise, all-generous, all-compassionate sustainer. And this journey starts with humility. This is the humility that is symbolized during the ruku', during the bowing, and especially during the sujood, the prostration in the salat. This is the humility and it's a humility that needs to be cultivated with conscious willingness, conscious decision to let go of our ego's false claims, those ego. the ego feeds on our false claims about who we are. And this kind of humility goes hand in hand with embracing our total dependence on our maker and sustainer. And if we stay in the here and now, and it is not easy to stay in the here and now, but the more we meditate, the more we stay in the present, in the here and now, physically, the here and now it will be easier to be grounded and to be patient, because we lose patience when we think it's been a long time and we are anticipating the future and we're saying, am I going to be like this for a long time in the future? And so we are not staying in the now. The now is only the now. It's not, it is short physically, it is very wide and timeless for the soul and the heart. And the more you stay there, especially in times of challenges, you will realize that what is really, really hurting is not our physical pains or what is going on in our body physically here and now, or in our life here and now, but more on our, if we have not learned to purify ourselves from the ego's claim, it is the claims of the ego. The ego hurts. It says like, because we have not made peace and we have not accepted our total dependence on our Rabb. And for instance, if I can't walk, if I can't move, that is, if the ego is still holding on, then it is a reminder that you are not the walker, you can't do this. And suddenly it's like almost like humiliating, like frustrating, like very, very painful. But the moment we make peace with it and make peace with the reality that it is not, I walk by God's permission and I don't walk by God's permission. That's it. And I stay there, then it becomes more and more, the heart becomes more and more peaceful, whatever is going on in the physical world. Whatever, it's something that we need to practice. And the starting is humility, and humility is, we start cultivating it by staying in the here and now and staying with who we truly are. For instance, if we're alive, we're breathing. Breath is being done unto us here and now. So all my claims about myself are related to my being alive. And our life is the most like something we treasure so much, yet it is linked to a very tiny, very thin thread, which is my breathing here and now, and that breathing is not in my control. The more we make peace with it, the more that fear, that anxiety of that thread is very thin, anything can happen anytime, will give a place instead to that deep tranquility and peace and relief to be connected to the source of life. Whatever happens to me, I am connected to the source of life. Whatever happens to the world, I am connected to the source of existence, to the source of beauty, to the source of perfection. The more that connection is something that I taste and savor and experience and witness, the more that peace is real and the anxiety starts dissolving. And this, in this context, the humility, in Surah Al-Hadid, Surah 56, Ayah 16, Surah 57, Ayah 16, we are told Is it not time for those who believe to humble their hearts to the remembrance of God? I'm trying to see what Isra is using. Okay. Is it not time for those who believe to humble their hearts to the remembrance of God? ألم يأني للذين آمنوا أن تخشع قلوبهم لذكر الله. So you see, in order to remember God, we need to humble our hearts. And you know how this surah starts? Surah Al-Hadid, it starts with سبح لله ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. Everything in the heavens and earth glorifies God, for He alone is the Almighty, the All-Wise. And right after, as usual, as it is in the Quran, right after we direct it to His creation. How do we know that everything glorifies Him? To Him alone belongs the sovereignty of the heavens and the earth. He gives life and causes to die, and He has the power over all things. So immediately when it says you glorify, or everything glorifies, right after we are redirected to the creation, because the creation is not happening in vain. And including our breathing, that's part of the creation. So when we hear sabbih, glorify, make tasbih, how do we respond? How do we perform the tasbih, the glorification? I think, don't we first need to know what tasbih is in order to perform it? And this sabbaha, sabbih isma rabbika al-a'la, we are told in a hadith that when this was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ started saying when we are in the prostration, in a state of sajda, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, and told everyone to do it. Ij'aluha fi sujudikum, he said. And for the ruku', the bowing, we do the Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. So this Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, do you think by responding, so I am told glorify God, I say glory be to God. Do you think my merely repeated the word is sufficient? Don't you think we need to know what we are saying, and we also need to practice it? It's like the shahada. We say ashhadu, but is that ashhadu is just words, or am I actually testifying, witnessing, seeing something? Isn't that what the Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon, blessings be upon him, did? Do you think he and the companions, they were only saying the words, parroting them? Surely not. So the whole thing here is this paragraph, this 12th window, is a window, a small window on what tasbih is, and how, as we discuss and reflect on this reflection of the author is a small exercise of performing, glorifying God in the way this Quranic text, this ayat, are telling us. And it's very important to learn how to make tasbih, because we better find out what tasbih is and how to do it, because tasbih is something we're supposed to perform constantly. The prayer is 5 times a day. Tasbih and dhikr, glorifying God, is something that we are supposed to do all the time. During the ruku' and sujood, during the prayer, we say Subhana Rabbiyal Azim, and Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. So we are supposed to know what we are saying. And also at the end of the prayers, the salat, we say 33 times Subhanallah, glory be to God. We are also in the Quran repeatedly told to perform tasbih constantly. And I give you few examples, and I'll stop there. And if you have anything to share, inshallah, please go ahead. So in ayah 41 of Surah 3, we are told, وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ كَثِيرًا وَسَبِّحْ بِالْعَشِيِّ وَالْإِبْكَارِ. And remember your sustainer, your Rabb, unceasingly or constantly, and glorify him by night and by day. And in Surah 40, ayah 55, we are told, be patient, for God's promise always comes true, and ask forgiveness for your sins, and glorify your Rabb with praise by night and by day. فَاصْبِرْ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ.
Sorry, Dr. Yamina, sorry, what was the first reference? Sorry.
3:41.
Yeah. 3:41, thank you.
Yeah, and the second one is 40:55.
Thank you.
And another one is from Taha 20:130. No, 20:130. Taha is Surah 20. So bear with patience whatever they may say, and glorify your Rabb with praise before the rising of the sun and before its setting, and glorify his praise during the hours of the night and during the hours of the day, so that you may find contentment. لَعَلَّكَ تَرْضَى. So rida is satisfaction, contentment, happiness. It says, glorify. فاصبر على ما يقولون وسبح بحمد ربك قبل طلوع الشمس وقبل غروبها ومن آناء الليل فسبح وأطراف النهار. It says, before the rising of the sun, before the setting of the sun, during some hours of the night, during some hours of the day. In Surah 50, yes.
I was expecting so that God be pleased with you. It's saying so that you will be pleased, you will find contentment.
Yes, it's for us. We need it. We need it when we are not busy with this, when the heart is not filled with the awe, with the appreciation, with the true nature of this life, of this worldly life that is actually transient and flowing. And when we are not filled with the meaning and purposes and benefits of this flow, of how transience itself is an ayah, and how everything is pointing beyond. So the soul is hungry, is unfulfilled, and we feel it in the heart, that dissatisfaction and being nothing, it seems like nothing can satisfy us. Then we try very hard to dig wells here and there in the worldly, in material, kind of material or worldly. It doesn't have to be physical. And no wonder the heart does not find any satisfaction. And then the question is, show me first how to satisfy my heart, and then I will, like, we're talking about God to me. Yeah, but like, what is God? Who is God? That's why he didn't start with sabbih, he started with ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Only with the remembrance of God, hearts find peace. And he explained why. because all that we need, all that we long for, all that we desire is with God. And then he says here, Sabbih, this is how you remember God. Because unless I do the glorifying, I cannot remember God. And then the next window is the 13th window, is how everything is glorifying God. So when I witness their glorifying, I will be glorifying myself. And then I remember God. And then life will be a series of remembering God, glorifying Him, and we will see how is that related to our own contentment, our own happiness, our own peace and tranquility, because it is a grounding in this seemingly transient life. Suddenly, the heart and the soul find a grounding not downward in this worldly life, but upward in the meaning of the flow, in the meaning of the beautiful names that pertain to God. Otherwise, even when we are disconnected, when we are our attention is scattered, and when we are looking for help and benefit from things that cannot help themselves because they themselves are in need, then our questions will always be going around in vicious circles. Those questions come from a space of disconnectedness, and therefore they don't take us anywhere. And often we don't listen. We don't listen to what we read. We read and we don't understand, or we don't listen to what we hear. Why? Because we don't have that humility. So we need to cultivate that humility. We need to make a decision. With that decision, we start on the path of humility. And that humility then needs to be cultivated through conscious, mindful exercises of glorifying God, of knowing ourselves, of grounding ourselves in the here and now, and appreciating what is given to us constantly. We are only recipients. We do not create anything good. We only stop what is good and coming to us without realizing. But without realizing, when we are in a state of ghafla, we are always in a state of ego arrogance. Ego arrogance in the sense, it says, for instance, yastakbirun. We are showing ourselves as what we are not. It is a lie and it is a false claim. And deep down, if we stop, pause, and listen, deep down, we know that we are lying to ourselves. And that's why we don't want to pause. Pausing is reflecting, pausing, meditating can be scary, especially at the beginning. When we have not tasted that, yes, we are seemingly losing one thing. Actually, we are not losing, because those lies only don't bring anything good to us. They only harm us. And the more we let go of those lies, the more we find something that is really, really worth it. The source, we find the source of everything.
Thank you, Dr. Yamina. We have a question here from
Yes.
Naima, would you like to speak? If not, I can read your comment. You are muted, Naima, if you're talking.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I don't know what was happening, but I couldn't unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the question that I had is that if we can seek contentment and peace in Allah and strive for humility, but we still have human fear. Can't they all coexist at the same time?
I am assuming that when you mean coexist is not at the same time, but one after the other. And yes,
Yeah.
we do. We go from, because we learn through the contrast, and fear, we can see it as a need. It's like we have hunger, and then we eat, and then we can appreciate the food and the giver of the food. And then we appreciate the hunger and the stomach to digest the food, and the hunger to appreciate it. And we appreciate the giver of all those. And we realize that all together, they're interconnected together. They all point to the bestower, the giver of the blessings. The blessings here becomes not only the food, but the digestive system, and also the hunger. And so it is for fear. What is fear? The need for safety. So if I never go through fear, I would never appreciate the gift of safety. However, this now it is going to be different, because I go through fear. Fear is, I welcome fear as a messenger from beyond, from God. And I get the message. And as I get the message, I remember to ask God for safety. And that will be maybe taking some action in the world as well. Because then we will be open to receiving the guidance and the inspiration. The inspiration and the guidance is always there, but often we are not open to receiving it. So when I receive and act on it, and I get that, before I get there, the moment I remember that the fear is a messenger, I already start feeling a sense of safety and reconnecting with God in a new way. Doesn't mean that I was disconnected necessarily, but now I know Him in a new way. And so fear becomes a friend, an ayah, a messenger of God, a messenger of safety. And that safety now has meanings that look well beyond the physical world, and that brings contentment and peace and tranquility to the heart, because I know now again, not only that I'm safe here now, what about tomorrow? No, I am connected to the source of all safety and all whatever the names of God you need at that moment. So it fulfills a totally different purpose, and we're not stuck in it for months and years. And I mean, I look at my past, it's like sometimes those fears, they don't go. We just are busy, and we forget about them, but it's still there. Something happens and it triggers it, and it comes back, because it's sitting there waiting with the message, and I'm not getting it. So it comes again until I get the message, and then fear becomes a friend. When I see it, it reminds me of God. It becomes, it is glorifying, and it becomes a reminder to glorify. And we won't be also running away from it. And when we don't run away from it, and when I appreciate, like, stay with that hunger, stay with that fear, then when the fear goes, what comes with the safety, I really truly savor it and taste it and experience it. And I can feel the beautiful names behind it, beyond it.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because I feel like, oftentimes we learn or it's impressed upon us, hey, like, have faith, and, seek peace. And if you do that, there's no fear. Like, it's like an absence of fear. But in my
in that moment, yes.
and that yes,
But
yes,
it's going to come again, yes.
yeah.
In
So it's
different,
not
but each time different. Look, if it comes always the same fear, it means it's a vicious circle. I am not growing spiritually. It means I am not listening to the fear. I'm not understanding its message. But if I am on a journey, dynamic journey, if I'm learning, then it will be a different fear, different taste, and different level, different, and each time something that will bring me closer to God.
Dr. Yamina, thank you so much for sharing that. It reminds me very quickly, I'd like to share with all the sisters a Turkish trauma series that actually I watched. I don't know if I shared before or not. A friend of mine shared watch Unassembly with English translation, and it's all available on YouTube. And it talks about and shows the dialogue between the teacher and the Unassembly, who was a Qazi first, but then he wanted to follow this Sheikh and Effendi, and then he said that to reach God, the Sufi themes in it, the Muraqabah, the Izkar, how his personal lives and his social life is affected. That series really illuminated for me how important it is to have a guide. And I see you as a guide, Dr. Yamina, and all the other, I guess, women who are offering these dawa and tafsir and interpretation related, really well-read, scholarly, deep thinking, meta knowledge level awareness raising for our spirit. I think my spirituality, like you mentioned, the levels and the fear modality has to switch. You're right. Otherwise, I will be trapped in the same fear and never get out of it. So, thank you. But also that Unassembly, whoever can watch, please do watch it. The music is beautiful, and it connects us with our Turkish history of Yunus Emre as a scholar and as a Sufi poet. But his life as it is captured in this series, there are about, I think, 90 or so long episodes, but they are worth watching and just paying attention to the dialogues between everybody, but especially between the teacher and the student, is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And there's another comment from Zahra. She says, so grateful for the reminders of reading fear. I'm going to practice making fear my best friend. MashaAllah. That's a beautiful resolution. So on that note, maybe shall we
have a question first? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Two questions actually, and maybe they're related, and maybe you've just touched upon one with the fear answer. How do you make peace with something? You were speaking about making peace earlier, and then later you spoke about experiencing tasabih rather than repeating. So clarification on making peace and on experiencing.
They are actually related. Shall we leave it to next time, inshallah? Then, well, the 12th and the 13th are somehow related. And I also wanted to share some passages from the Quran where we are told again and again, sabbih. It's an amr, it's a command, it's a do this, glorify God. And it's mostly from morning to evening, day in, day out, again and again. So inshallah, we can start with that next week, and keep in mind also Maha's questions. They are related and they are very, very relevant, very important, inshallah. But since it's already like we've been together 2 hours, alhamdulillah, we can have a pause and a week pause, and during the week
if you can go through the 12th window, the author's reflection on this passage is a window onto how to glorify God. And of course, glorifying God can be done always through looking at the creation, but the creation is so different that it's not always order and proportion. In other passages, it will be, for instance, he creates life and death. In each passage, it teaches us to glorify God in different ways. Inshallah. Thank you, Maha. Inshallah, you don't mind that we will take next week. Inshallah.
Oh, of course, it's perfectly fine. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everyone. Fi aman.
Assalamu alaikum. I had a request. Inshallah, next time or maybe another episode, can you just shed light on these windows and words? Like some of us have joined in between, so we don't know the relevance and what deeper meaning these words have. So, inshallah, if you can just introduce us to the format of Risala-e-Noor, so it will help, because I think everyone joined at a certain time. I think it would be a good introduction for everyone, inshallah.
It's also helpful to look at the very first class we had. If you go into playlist, you will see the very first, these classes one after the other under the same playlist of 30.
Okay, so there the explanation is there in that?
The very first one has.
Okay, inshallah, I'll do that.
We did the recap 2 weeks ago as well. There were some new people.
I think it was not recorded because I went to listen to that one. So I think it was after you stopped recording, maybe.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Inshallah, I mean, we can also give another recap. Definitely. And those of you who want an extended, what we're reading, then the very first video in Receiving Noor playlist, I can also post it here in a moment. Might be helpful. The other thing I wanted to remind is that please mark your calendars for December 24th through December 26th. These 3 days, there will be a Receiving Noor online annual retreat. We normally meet in person, physically, DC, but this year, inshallah, we'll be doing an online retreat. Registration will open shortly, but in the meantime, please mark your calendars. Inshallah.
And Friday as well.
Yeah, Friday at 8 p.m. Inshallah, we'll carry on, continuing.
Thank you, Dr. Yamina. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Fi amanillah.
May I make a quick announcement? If I was asked by a sister to share more information about writing letters to incarcerated sisters. That's something I've shared last retreat in December, last December retreat in DC. So I'm gonna stay behind to give more information. So if anybody wants to, if anybody's interested in getting more info about sharing, about writing letters to incarcerated sisters, feel free to stay behind if that's okay with Dr. Yamina and Isra, to stay behind and
Sure, inshallah. Yes, please.
Thank you. So Naima?
I'm here.
Okay, we'll meet. And if anybody else wants to join, they're welcome to do so.
Inshallah, thank you.
I have a quick question. Maybe I should ask in person. I did send letters in the summer, and I don't know if you have missed them. I didn't hear anything.
I didn't hear you, Isra.
Are we still live on YouTube?